What can we be absolutely certain of? Is there anything at all that we can know beyond any doubt? In the 17th century, René Descartes sought an unshakable foundation for knowledge, something that could withstand even the most radical skepticism. In time, his answer would go on to become one of the most famous insights in all of philosophy. Cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. Yet, is not the most important clause missing from this formula? For Descartes, you see, it all began in dubito. Descartes arrived at his cogito through an ingenious method, and it is the method which recommends his conclusions. He imagined an all-powerful deceiver, perhaps a malicious demon, manipulating his senses and thoughts, throwing into question everything he thought he knew. If this were true, then the external world, his culture and family, even his own body, could be an illusion. But, he wondered, was there anything that even the most powerful deception could not erase? This was his quest and question to answer, and in the end he was able to answer in the affirmative, because he realized that if he were to doubt absolutely everything, then he must doubt that he was doubting. Yet one cannot both be doubting that one is doubting and doubt that one is doubting that one is doubting. In other words, to doubt is to be in a certain state, and that state therefore seems immune to the influence of doubt, since to doubt that state would just be not to engage in doubt at all. Hence, he saw that to doubt is to think, and to think is to be, and thus he must exist. In other words, even if all else were false, the very act of doubting proved that something, the doubter himself, must exist in some form. One cannot doubt without thinking, and one cannot think without existing. This insight became Descartes' foundational truth. Even if everything else is in question, the existence, in some form or another, of the one doing the doubting is indeed undeniable. Philosophers would later call into question the thought that Descartes' reasoning truly established a self. David Hume argued that introspection reveals only fleeting impressions and thoughts, but no stable I behind them. Nietzsche concurred, suggesting that Descartes assumed an I where there was only the act of thinking itself. Perhaps it is not I think, but simply thinking happens. These concerns seem warranted. An alternative way to articulate Descartes' famous dictum, which might avoid the sting of this objection while maintaining the integrity of the original insight, could be to concede that the notion of I is not necessarily vindicated, but nonetheless it seems truly undeniable that there must be something. Whether that be Descartes' malevolent God, a world filled with brains in vats, matrix style, or even Maya and Leela, illusion and play. Whatever the case may be, something always remains true. Something must be the case for you and I to be here in the first place. In other words, even if no stable self exists, the fact of existence itself remains undeniable. Thought may lack an owner, identity may be an illusion, but what cannot coherently be denied is the simple fact that something is the case. The deepest certainty is not, it seems, I am, but the incorrigible insight that whatever ultimately is, there is always something that is real. Later thinkers variously expanded, contracted, and debated the cogito's implications. Sartre saw it as proving existence, but not essence, arguing that we must define ourselves through our choices. Heidegger rejected the idea of a detached thinking subject, emphasizing that our being is always engaged with the world and never separable from it. Wittgenstein fairly questioned whether the cogito presupposed too much about language and the nature of self-reference. Despite these critiques, the cogito remains one of philosophy's most profound insights. It marks the point where absolute doubt collapses into certainty, not necessarily of an individual self, but of existence as such, the phenomenon of being. Even if all identity is illusion, even if no I persists, the undeniable fact remains. Something must exist. The question then becomes, just what is that something which always is?